Thanks for joining us right now. I'm talking with Colleen Haley from Yazaki. She's an executive vice president at Yazaki, also the president of the OEM U.S. business unit for the company. Great talking with you, Colleen.
Thanks, John. Good to be here.
Okay, executive vice president, that's a pretty high level. Tell me a little bit. Give me an idea of something along your career path where you went, aha, this is a really good lesson learned. This is going to serve me well in my career. Can you tell me one?
Sure, of course. Well, my example is going to come from Thailand, actually. So you hear the phrase, and it's kind of a cliche, think global, act local. But on a walk to a customer office in Bangkok, right, so we're walking along the streets, 110 degrees, 99% humidity, going into what would be a typical customer meeting. And we knew that the meeting would run according to the usual protocols, right? But what we had to do is satisfy the customer that we could take their global requirement and deploy it across 7 countries on a common platform. So it was really the moment of saying, okay, here we are, right? Yazaki's a global company. We champion our global footprint and our ability to deliver globally. Now we've got to really pull it off. So it was a moment to say, okay, let's figure out how do we certainly meet the customer needs. We know how to do that well. But how do we translate the customer needs across 7 continents, across a pretty aggressive 3-year time frame, and bring it all together?
And so what was the aha moment for you there? Where did something really click for you on how to make that happen?
Well, I'll tell you, we were with the global team. So we've got all 7 countries represented in the meeting with the customer. And it was a matter of saying, okay, we've got to demonstrate, we've got a common language, right, within our organization, and we understand the customer's common language. So one of the key ahas for me was, I'm sitting across a person that I would have met with in Southeast Michigan 2 weeks ago. Now here we are both in Bangkok with our global teams. This is where, right, you really pull the global programs off. So that was to me saying it's all about global, but end of the day, it's all about local. It's about the relationship you've built. It's about the performance you've demonstrated. And now you're just translating that across the world. And
so now you're keeping this kind of concept in mind as you approach other projects as well?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think for me, the keys really were, you've got to be clear and open, right, with the customer and with your own team. You've got to translate a global requirement into something that matters to the local team, because at the end of the day, they're the ones who are going to deliver the parts to the customer. So it's always that translation of global requirement, local execution.
As you say, think global but act local.
Right, exactly.
Good aha moment there.
It was.
So let's keep on talking about women in the auto industry. This is a very male-dominated industry, as you well know. But we're seeing progress in bits and pieces, you
Absolutely.
being a good example of that. How would you encourage other women to get into this industry?
I think the first step is take a look, right? We've seen some data from upcoming college graduates that say not really interested in automotive. In fact, there's a data point that says it ranked 13th among 14 industries in terms of interest. But here's the good part of that. Number 1 was consumer products. So if we can translate, what's the largest, right, most impactful consumer product out there, right? It's the car on the road. So if we can open the door and say to these upcoming women, college graduate students, new hires, come into automotive, and this is really consumer product, right? This is meeting consumers, being a part of their lives for hours a day. So we have started to say, if you change the car, you change the world, right? So it's about getting them into automotive enough to do a little deeper look and understand the translation.
How do you do that? How do you get them to even start considering automotive? How do you get in front of them, physically or with some sort of message or anything like that?
Right. Well, many of the companies, Yazaki included, we really are taking advantage of interns and co-ops. So get the students when they're still in school, their minds are open, and if you give them their first professional experience and relating to global, if it can be with a global company and they're hearing about this, they're learning about international business, and they see, here's a way I can put that into action, I might be able to travel the world with this company and in this industry. So we got to get them right when they're young and when they're open, and lock them into automotive, lock them into our companies early.
I imagine that in areas where there's a lot of automotive work being done, Of course, Detroit or Southeast Michigan being the best example in the U.S., but there's other areas within the U.S. You know, there's so many Japanese automakers in Southern California, for example. A lot of the European ones are based in the New York City area or whatnot. How do you get that message out to the rest of the country?
It's a good question. I think it's a bigger challenge, right? So we really have been focused on let's start at home, number one, and really build the perception in our own neighborhood, in our own communities, with the kids in Michigan, frankly, right? We hear Governor Snyder say, one of the things we need to do is keep our kids here, give them jobs, you know, give them the ability to progress. So we're very much aligned with that. And then I think you do have to branch out, and a piece of that is developing a community of automotive companies. There's a common message and a common benefit to attract young talent into automotive. So we need to make that case to the European OEMs, to the Japanese OEMs.
That's a good point, too. By having this automotive community all on the same page saying the same message, that's got to help a lot in getting the message out.
Right, absolutely. And that's really, if I can talk a little bit about Automotive Next, that's really where a group like that comes together.
And explain what Automotive Next is.
Sure. Automotive Next is an industry-specific group within Inforum, and Inforum is one of the largest professional women's organizations in the country. We're in Southeast Michigan and in West Michigan. And Automotive Next really, it came from a subset of Automotive News' 100 Leading Women. So several of us had talked over the years about how do we get more women in automotive, how do we help the women that are in automotive progress. So we said, hey, here's a great opportunity, and Inforum was willing to partner with us. And we're really all about attract and retain very capable, talented women in automotive.
Do you start in college, high school? Where? How do you reach out? Where do you go mining, as it were, these people to come in?
Well, we're in year one, and where we're focusing in year one is with those college students. So we're doing some studying, right? We're doing focus groups with them. We have interns not only in the companies that we're connecting to each other, but also an intern in Automotive Next who's helping us. She's bringing that Gen Y approach, which is very interesting, right? We're learning firsthand what does a Gen Y person look for in a career, in a company that they'd want to join.
Interesting. Can you share us any insights into that?
Sure. One is global is important, right? They want to be out and see the world. Speed is important, both in terms of learning and movement through a career path. Also, technology, right? Tie it all together for us. We want to see, you know, they're on their iPods and on their computers and on their BlackBerries 24/7, and they're connecting socially as well as professionally. So I think we've got some things to learn about integration of social networking within the industry.
And within which disciplines? Engineering, business schools, or beyond that, too?
Really all, and I think it's one of the cases to make for automotive is certainly we need engineers. And we know through the data that 60% of the college graduates are women, 45% of the technical master's degrees are women. So we need those women in science and engineering. But I don't have a science and engineering background, right? I came up through the HR ranks. So business, finance, marketing, all areas, right? Automotive companies are huge, huge businesses with opportunities across the spectrum.
That's what I've always loved about the automotive business. Almost any kind of discipline, the automotive industry may have a job for you.
Absolutely.
Well, Colleen Haley, thanks so much for coming in and sharing all this with us.
Thank you, John. It was my pleasure.
MBS TV is brought to you by Inforum, helping women to lead and succeed since 1962. TI Automotive, fluid thinking. And made possible by Yazaki, all systems go. And by wardsauto.com. With special thanks to the Center for Automotive Research.